Never do that again to me. Ever.
Well, hello there once again, ladies and gentlemen. Now that I've finally stopped laughing at Steve, who always manages to make me laugh right before we start recording.
Blame the redhead for every single problem.
I will. Welcome once again to Red Letter Roundtable. My name's Tony Anobile, and let's just go and introduce ourselves. To my left is the Ginger, and he will introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is Steve, the Ginger. I don't know what else to say.
Well, here's the thing. Since we all kind of introduced ourselves last time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just tell us how you're doing. And,
It's a loaded question. I'm getting by. Marcos, I'm getting by.
You're getting by.
I'm getting by.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's always good. Getting by is good.
So I'm going to pass the baton to you then, if you want to...
Well, you know, I'm interested in knowing what's the coolest place you've ever been?
London.
London.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Hands down.
Well, I'm doing relatively well. My wife recently had some health struggles after having a baby and then having to have gallbladder surgery, which was no fun. And then, like, she reacted negatively to medication. Like, we literally went to the ER like 10 times within 2 weeks.
Wow.
It was very, very difficult. And I had a lot of studies and stuff like that. So I don't think, you know, what was cool about the experience is it showed me that I'm not as holy as I thought I was. I dropped a few F-bombs, so did she.
It's amazing how an emergency room visit can necessitate that as a release.
Absolutely.
Kinda.
You know, when you get stressed out like that. So anyways, coolest place I've ever been. You know, I've been a few places, but I still gotta give it to Australia. Gotta give it to Australia, for sure. Ruth?
What's your name? You didn't even say your name.
I didn't say my name.
No, you didn't.
Marcus. My name is Marcos David Torres. But most people would just call me Marcus.
You threw in the middle initial.
Jersey.
If you leave the middle name in there, that means you're in trouble, dudes. You want to leave that out.
Or you should Marcos D.
Are we doing middle names?
Only if you feel the need.
Okay, I just need to know if I need to be emotionally prepared
To handle it.
Now I want to hear it.
Well, my name is Ruth Bonet, and my week so far has been a challenging week thus far. But other than that, I know God is bringing me through. And let's say the coolest place I've ever been to, Machu Picchu.
Whoa.
Oh, man.
It was
That is
pretty.
cool.
It's pretty intense to be in one of the ancient world wonders.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Did you figure out, like, the mystery? Wasn't there, like, a mystery about that place? Like,
They didn't explain the mystery.
no, maybe that's the Mayans.
You're
That'd be the
thinking of
Mayans.
Chichen Itza. Chichen Itza is the temple with the steps.
Okay.
Wow, man.
Well, that's a good way to betray the fact that I'm a history major.
It is. Well, since you're at it, you're our guest speaker for the evening, so
Yeah.
go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Jordan Reichert. I'm from Michigan, and Tony told me to come over today.
Woo!
Yeah.
Had no idea what you were getting yourself into.
Not really. I figured there'd be a table, and I figured there'd be some cool people and some microphones, but
Cool.
Coolest
Which
place I've
there
been.
are.
There are.
I'd like
And
to
there's a
point
really
out.
good slushy that
Well
only I
provided.
am enjoying.
I was going to order
Yeah.
one, but I figured we were going to get started before that.
Anything else?
Super
Studying
cool
history here,
Okay.
and religious studies, and just trying to keep everything in perspective.
Right on.
That kind of stuff. Coolest place I've ever been. Out in the Sahara Desert with
Sahara
camping
Desert.
with a Bedouin.
No way.
Yeah, man.
Man. We've been to some cool places, dude. Wow, we should have a cool places pod where we just talk about our
Unbeknownst to the public, Jordan just came back about 3 months ago from Egypt. He was there for
Yeah.
about, 5 months?
4
months. 4 months. He was there for 4 months, so he just came back. That's really cool.
That is
That's pretty
cool, dude.
Well, as you heard before, my name's Tony. I'm staying here, introduced myself last episode, so my week has been absolutely exhausting. I've gone straight from class to work, clocked out and went back to my apartment, had zero time to do anything the last 2 days because I've been helping a bunch of seniors, high school seniors here get used to Southern and try to come, so I've been smiling and happy and not wanting to throttle any of them at all. That's not what I wanted to do.
That's really admirable.
It isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, so
Your patience is stunning.
it's from uh-huh. So, coolest place I've ever been is probably a tie between Jerusalem. I absolutely love Jerusalem, and personal one for me would actually be the Los Angeles Museum of Natural History. I love that place.
Don't tell me that you just put Jerusalem and Los Angeles on the
You don't understand. Thank you. It's like, what's your favorite food? And you're like, well, I really like either duck à l'orange or gum.
You don't understand though.
Tony wanted to go.
As a child, man, going to that place, it ton of memories. It was so cool to be able to go in there and to see all those kinds of stuff, and to go through all the exhibits and everything like that. So that to me was cool. But like I said, Jerusalem as an adult.
Forget David. Forget Solomon's Temple.
Yeah, forget the Fortress of Elah.
Forget Jehoshaphat.
All right, let's put it in financial terms.
I want to see the car that Humphrey Bogart drove to work in.
At the Los Angeles Museum of... No, I'm just kidding.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cool stuff. Well, just a little bit about the program again. For those who are maybe coming in the first time, or for those who need a reminder from last time, there are some rules in this program. And if you guys, for those who have been listening, if you remember last time, we used my laundry money for this. But this time we're doing something a little different.
Because he forgot his.
I forgot my laundry money. Yeah, I totally forgot it. So.
Is that what I'm saying?
I like this section better, though. I like this way better.
I kind of do too. It's more random. It's more random. So basically, here's what we're doing. This whole pod, there's some rules, and the rules is no theological jargon whatsoever. Like, theological jargon, and no ginormous words like ginormous.
Technically, wouldn't theological jargon be one of the words you'd have to throw something?
That's what I just said.
You just lost 2 items.
But well, I'm still explaining the rules.
All right.
So anyways, so all of us have 3 personal items. Last time we had my laundry money, but I felt that wasn't very safe. So this time we've all gone to 3 personal items. I have a key, my debit card, and a business card for Michael D. Boyd, Associate Professor and Intramural Director at Southern Adventist University. Every time I use a theological or ginormous word, I have to get rid of one of these items, put them in the middle of the table. And if I'm out of 3, then that means I have to go sit in the chair of shame. And the same is true for everyone here. And so it looks like, Steve has 3 pens. What do you have over there?
I got my watch. I got my lucky remembrance thing. It's got like my name on it.
It's a keychain.
It's a keychain, Tony.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a good.
Thank you. And what else?
One word thing for it, and I got my wallet.
In a wallet. Okay.
So.
Oh, that's a ton.
What do you have?
I have a very outdated iPhone. I have Tony.
Which one is it?
It's so old that I don't remember which one it is. I think it's one of the 4s.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's what I have. I thought it was really cool.
Okay. Well, sorry.
Okay, let's just define it. I don't have an iPhone, so all of you.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
I don't have an iPhone.
You're cooler than me.
Okay. Have the iPhone have Tony's USB flash drive thing, and I have Tony's digital camera.
I want to point out USB 32 gigs, so that is a valuable
32
item.
gigs. That is valuable. Yeah.
All right.
Ruth?
I just have 3 pens.
3 pens, just like Steve.
So that if it were to go down, I wouldn't miss it.
How about 2 pens on the phone?
No.
Dang.
All right. Well, later on, we're also going to play a different game. Last time we played Are You Relevant? Today we're going to be playing Bible or Not. We'll get to that when we get to that. But today, what we are going to talk about is skepticism. The challenge of skepticism as young Christians, what it's like to live in a world, in a society that is constantly out to get God. It's not so much that there's people with different opinions anymore. I mean, atheism has become evangelical in a sense, that it is on a mission to erase God. And people like Richard Dawkins are on a mission to convince. They're not just there to share their views and be a part of a community of people who have their views, but they're literally on a mission to get rid of God and to convince Christians that there is no God. And so as young people, this is a challenge. The challenge of skepticism. Is God real? And of course, this isn't an apologetics podcast. We're not going to go into physics and astronomy or any of that crazy stuff in order to, define that. We're just going to have a conversation about what this was like for us. So let's just take a look at that really quick, and we'll start around the table and just share our own experiences with skepticism and what it was like for each and every one of us. And we'll start with you, Tony. We'll just go around the table and talk about it.
Skepticism. Yeah, I think it started for me when I was about 15. Dan Brown came out with the Da Vinci Code, and I wasn't.
That.
Yeah, I didn't read it at first, but just the effects of that just kind of permeated. Dang it! It came. Yes, lost the watch.
Permeated.
Lost the watch.
You can't. That's off.
That's a big word. It's a big word.
It's a big one.
It kind of just became a part of society
counts
so
syllables.
much. Yeah, he
counts
does.
syllables.
Syllables.
It's not syllables.
I thought it was a big word. I thought it was a big word,
Just
so I'm
remember
willing to
that
give it.
We're shooting for the age target of 13 and 24. Yeah.
So
I don't think I would know what permeated when I was 13.
I thought it was. I'll put it in. Like if
Okay.
I would have
We'll leave
defended
it
it,
there.
but
We'll
I'll
leave
put it in there. It kind of just
It's because he
became
feels
such a
guilty about
part of
that.
society. It was hard for me to not feel the effects of it. And so, certain books I would read, I was really into Crusades, and I thought I would be doing archaeology from that time. I ended up doing, way older archaeology, but I thought I would be doing, from that time, kind of in England and France in that area. So I really wanted to read about that, and everything that came out was started on that Masonic and Illuminati and all that crazy conspiracy theory that now we know is a load of bunk. But by the time, everyone was all hot in it, and so it was hard not to read about all these different gospels that had come out and these different books of the Bible that weren't in the Bible as we know it, the group of books that we call it. And so that's where skepticism started for me. Really, was kind of as a kid that loved history, hearing about all this stuff. And so I began to really look at my beliefs, like I said last time, stepped back, started reading a lot of apologetics, a lot of G.K. Chesterton, C.S. Lewis. Francis Chan hadn't come out at the time, but Francis Chan's book, Radical Christianity, the book Radical, just Radical, is another book that I kind of started looking at. Another one was called Do Hard Things, and I can't remember the authors, but it was a really, really interesting book that wasn't necessarily Christian in its defense of God, but in its idea that we're meant to do something more than just kind of sit around and play video games.
Can we just press pause and define what apologetics is? It's not saying sorry.
So maybe did I say that before I explain the rules or after?
No, basically, apologetics is just a way of defending the Christian faith. That's all
It's
it
not
is.
apologizing for the
Or
Christian faith.
defending anything, really.
Yeah,
Right.
it's defending anything. Yeah, you could
But
be
in
an
the context
apologetics.
that we're using it, it's defending the Christian faith.
Right.
And
Having an answer.
having
Yeah.
an
Have an
answer.
answer for questions that may be asked.
So, like Richard Dawkins would be when he debates with a
Yeah,
Christian,
yeah, exactly.
he is practicing apologetics for atheism.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the Christian
yeah.
is practicing apologetics for Christianity. They're defending the faith. So-
Defending whatever beliefs you have,
Yeah.
you're defending it.
Yeah.
You have that in history. You have essentially when you go to defend any thesis and doctrine, you
Yeah.
have an apologetics for your own writings. Anyway, so I got into those guys trying to prove what Christianity is.
Yeah.
And I love C.S. Lewis because he comes from a very logical world. People used their brains a lot more then than they tend to do now. Now we just kind of accept things and just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But back then people were like, we need evidence, we need to check this out. And C.S. Lewis said, all right, here's why Christianity is logical and here's why it's not logical. And I loved that.
Yeah.
I love that because I could rationalize it. So, and that was my first real fight with skepticism, was getting that age and finding out that everything that I thought was real wasn't.
Yeah. Wow, man. Well, since Tony took like 10 hours, we all have 30 seconds. Steve, I'm just kidding. Yeah, just,
My issues with skepticism weren't so much whether or not I believed that God was real. I've always held to that belief. I grew up in the church, and it's not something that I struggled with in that sense. What I struggled with was believing whether or not His word was true. His promises were true. And just some of the stuff that I've gone through in my life, seeing situations that my family has been in and I've been in, it's kind of what convinced me that God is very true. What He says is true. His promises are true, and we can't count on it.
Yeah. Well, my struggle with skepticism, most people start like when they're young. That's when the real struggle starts. I didn't really, not for me, I can't remember that. I actually started struggling with skepticism when I was older. And I started to get these thoughts like, you know, what if God, the whole idea of God is just this psychological thing, you know? What if every experience I've ever had that I interpreted as God acting in my life, what if it's all just been a psychological delusion? And then I had to take a class here at Southern called Issues in Physical Science and Religion, where you actually study atheism and some of the philosophical and scientific views of atheists. And I was like, oh boy, you know, like these guys are so smart. I'm so gonna, you know, like I was scared to read them because I was like, I'm gonna walk out of this like these people are gonna convince me that God isn't real, and I'm studying to be a pastor, and I'm gonna be out of a career. So because they're gonna convince me, they're way smarter than me, you know. So that, you know, and that was only a few years ago when it was the very first time that I actually literally faced an authentic challenge to my faith. That I was like, you know, maybe this whole thing is fake. Maybe it's not real. So that's where it was for me.
I had two interesting scenarios with skepticism. One was my own personal struggle when I was a child, about 8 years old or so. And my issue with skepticism was the issue of the people around me who call themselves Christian. And
I know where this is going.
and I was saying, okay, if you're a Christian and if you're calling yourself a Christian, then why are things happening in your life that are not Christian? And so it didn't brought me to the point of questioning God's existence, but it brought me to the point of, you know, what's the point of following if this was going to be the issues that I was going to face regardless, even being a Christian. The other issue that I ran into with skepticism was now, by the time, actually I started just going to school here, and it wasn't by me. By that time, I had already sorted stuff out with God. But it was with a friend that he grew up in the church, he grew up in this entire system and everything like that. But the struggle with him was the fact that he was grappling with skepticism. He was trying to come to his own terms, but yet at the same time, I began to find a very interesting line, I guess you can say, of when skepticism finally turns into an issue of not necessarily grasping onto God, but an issue of surrendering your life to God. And that's a really solid wall that I hit, and it's hard to deal with. And so it's hard to deal it with yourself when you're in that picture, and then it's hard to deal with it with other people and trying to draw the lines and define the terms of what makes what.
Wow.
So,
well, let's go to our guest, Jordan.
Yeah. That's a heavy question. Skepticism. I think we're probably lying to ourselves if we think we're out of the woods with it. You know, like if we think that, you know, a lot of times people say, you know, I struggled with this and I struggled with this, but now I've gained a victory and I'm fine. Praise the Lord. And, you know, people say amen, and then there's, you know, sometimes that can actually, maybe it can build hope for some, but it can really destroy hope for others who have not, for the 90% of other people sitting maybe in the back row of the
Good
church
point.
who haven't experienced a victory like that yet. Yeah, it's very real. I think it's still real for me from time to time. It shows up in different ways, like what our ginger friend Mr. Steve was saying. Just the concept of seeing the difference between whether or not you doubt God exists or whether or not he is what the Bible says he is, you know. And that's something that I feel like I've wrestled with a lot in my life. I grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist family. I don't think you can necessarily be born into the church. You know, God doesn't have any grandkids, right?
Yeah.
But I think that my biggest wrestling with God has been in the last few years, but that's also been when I've had some of the most victories. No final victories, you know.
Yeah.
Not in heaven yet.
Yeah.
But I think that the scary thought of God
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. It has huge obligations because it's like it's not just something that you can buy into. If like, oh, that's nice and that works for you. No, like,
Right.
it's not necessarily an it works for you thing. Like the Bible says that Jesus, is the Savior of all the world, of all peoples, of all nations, all tongues. Every knee will bow. There's a lot of all-encompassing statement.
Yeah.
Encompassing. Oh, is that did I lose an item?
Oh,
Including.
I don't know.
Including. Okay,
I'm gonna turn this one over. Okay,
I'll put it in.
I'm gonna turn it over to Steve for the final verdict.
You got two.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got two more.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So I see that you
basically-
gave up the flashcard first.
Yeah, right.
Well, it was in the middle, and it's
Okay.
it's that way it leaves everything else. I can't even say what I wanted to say. I wanted to say
Fine.
symmetrical. I can't do that. No, but
CD
basically,
maybe?
the Bible makes a lot of all statements,
Yeah.
and to believe in the truth of God is to accept a lot of things.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I can think of probably when I'm talking a little longer than you guys, sorry. But like I remember when you're 7 and 8, you don't really question if God exists if you've grown up in a Christian family. But when you start to kind of have your own thoughts, like you actually come to a point in time where you remember kind of having your own thoughts about something more or less, like actually opening up the Bible for the first time by yourself. And I remember looking up at the stars and thinking, heaven is out there somewhere. I was like, that's cool. And then I started to think, wait, is it really? Like, is it really? Is it a real place? Is it a real thing? Is God a real God that exists in time and out of time? And who cares about me? And is the Bible really the ultimate truth? So, yeah, it's a real issue. It's alive.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to be honest about our weaknesses, because if we're not honest about our weaknesses, then it's like we're protecting some darkness in our life.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best way is just to be honest and shine light on your darkness.
Yeah. That's true, man.
And see what comes up.
Yeah. I love the perspective you're bringing to this, because I think it's really, really authentic, and it, just hearing you talk about it gets my gears turning, in my own mind, and it's really true what you just said. We're gonna come back to that, but for a moment now we're gonna turn over to our game, which Tony is going to announce, followed by a sound effect by our sound effect board Ginger, followed by the game itself.
I feel like I don't want Ginger to be like a diminutive thing. Like
Well, he made that up himself.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say,
I don't know if I made it up.
No,
But I introduced himself.
I embrace it.
how about make it something more like historically impressive, like Stephen the Red? It's kind of
I like
it's like
Viking.
Eric the Red.
Yeah.
Stephen the Red.
Stephen the Red.
I'm okay with
Let's
it.
go.
Yeah.
Recessive gene Steve.
Recessive
I'm a man of many monikers.
Great. Tony.
with the
What are we
official
playing?
pies.
Okay, game time. Game on.
I actually don't. Bible or not? Bible or not? Is that what it's called?
That's a terrible way of announcing a game.
All right,
It's
we're
not
gonna
gonna
play our
matter.
game right now, and our game involves Marcos giving the instructions.
Wait. We were supposed to announce why or not, followed by sound effect.
Oh, right, okay. And now it's time for Bible or not.
We need a real sound effect, boy.
We need a commercial.
We're not a
Soundboard, dude.
Anyways, okay.
I don't just emanate random things on demand.
Ooh,
Yeah, here-
Oh, emanate. There we go.
I'm so sorry because I'm. I was about to use another
I
one.
still have my free guys.
Okay, here's the game. So basically, I'm gonna read 5 statements. Each of these statements, I'm not gonna say where they come from. Jordan has to guess if this is a statement that comes from the Bible or not. He has 3 lifelines, which are Ruth, Tony, and Stephen. If he doesn't know, he can ask one of them.
Question. You do 5 of them, right?
Yes.
Are you going to do one stop and ask me, and then I tell
Yes,
you, or are you
yes.
going to go
One
all the way
stop
through
and
and
ask.
ask it?
One stop and ask.
Okay. Is
So
there
we're
a
gonna
certain is there a certain number like?
What do you mean?
Like, is there a certain number? There's this many from the Bible, and there's this many duds.
I can't say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
Okay, so I'm going to read the statements. If you get them all right, you are officially dubbed an awesome Bible man. If you do
I
not,
answered 5 questions.
if you get a few right, you're a sort of awesome Bible man, and you get none right, you are a heathen. Well, we're not going to go there. We're just
The raisin cakes of the pagans.
Yeah. All right, you ready?
Sounds delicious.
And also, whenever I do read a Bible statement, they're going to come from the King James because they sound really, really epic. All right, are you ready?
Okay.
All right, statement number 1. Oh, that doesn't sound too good with my wedding band. The law is perfect, but it makes no one perfect. Bible or not?
The law is perfect, but it makes no one perfect. No.
Okay. Why not? That's not one of the questions, is it? No, that is correct. It is not Bible. It is a biblical principle, but it is not Bible.
Totally biblical.
It comes from Andrew Farley. All right.
Farley.
Yeah, I don't know why that's exciting. All right, number 2. So far you've got one right. Number 2. Cleanliness is next to godliness.
It is not, and I knew that was going to show
not
up.
Bible.
I knew that was going to show up.
Do you know who said it?
Probably a lot of old ladies.
I think it was coined by John Wesley.
Oh, John Wesley? Okay, my
A
guess
really old lady.
my guess would have been John Smith. But he's
John
the one who
Smith.
said, if you don't work, you don't eat, right? Is that John Smith?
Yeah.
Or he probably
If you
said,
don't work, you don't
if
eat,
thou
yeah.
workest not, thou eatest
Yeah.
not. Probably
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, number 3.
I was like,
Man,
all English
this
are
is
lazy.
this is hard because this guy is so intelligent. Like I know he's gonna get all of these. All right, number 3. The fool says in his heart, there is no God.
Bible!
Bible. Now that you know where it's from, like it'll give you extra kudos.
My guess
Just
would
the
be,
book.
my guess would be Proverbs.
Proverbs is a good guess. It's actually from Psalms.
Oh.
Psalms 53, verse 1. All right.
Mercy.
All right. Let's see here.
This is fun.
You're on
Is it?
number
I
4.
like
I'm on number 4. So far you're doing really good, man. I'm trying to find one that won't be so obvious. All right, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Whoops, sorry.
Are you ready?
I am not.
Okay.
All right. Man, this one's so obviously clear. Oh, grace to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be.
That's a hymn.
That's a hymn. Robert Robinson, outstanding. Man, you have one more.
Now found.
One more, right? One more.
Okay.
Let's see here. So far, the most challenging one was the first one. The rest of them have been pretty.
Because it was
pretty
biblical, it just wasn't.
Yeah.
It just wasn't from the Bible.
Easy. Absolutely. Okay. Last one. Pride goes before a fall.
That's the Bible.
Bible or not?
That is the Bible.
Is that your final answer?
It is.
You sure?
Yes.
You're so close. I want to give you a chance at awesomeness here, man.
Is it not in the Bible? Okay, no. No.
Not Bible. Not Bible.
Oh, okay.
The closest is pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a
That's
fall.
it. That's
That
it.
is the closest.
and
but
the-
pride goes before a fall
Okay.
is not actually.
Well, I didn't really
in
get
the
it
Bible.
then. I didn't really get it because you kind of clued me off.
No, you got it, man. You're awesome. You're an awesome Bible student. Give him a round of applause. Everybody. Yeah.
I didn't earn this.
Well, you know, grace.
Just like grace.
Yeah, just like grace.
Beat me
Yeah.
to it.
All right.
Let's go back to the first one. Yeah.
All right, so we're talking about
Sorry.
skepticism and the struggle of skepticism in each of our lives, and we talked about the struggle, the situation, how it got to the point that it got in. Now, let's talk really quick before we get to the resolution. What was the point in your life? We'll start with Ruth on this one, and we'll work around this way. It will end with me. What was the point when you first started to struggle with skepticism? What was the point where it got really, where you would say it got to the point where you were like, all right, I need answers and I need them now because this is really getting, it's getting tough to deal with this. Ruth.
Well, the thing.
And by the way, I'm sorry, before you continue, Just so that there's no confusion, just so that we have, we manage our time well, let's try to stick to 1 to 2 minutes each. All right?
Okay.
Go.
That was for me.
That was for you, Tony. Not pointing any elbows.
Anyway.
Go.
The wonderful thing about God is that He is an actual being, and that He is a person. So then when you pick up the challenge of challenging God and saying, show me if you're there, He's gonna actually do it.
Wow.
And the thing is, and going back to what Jordan said, it's when you begin to understand or try to grasp the concept of God and to put a reality upon Him, there's a lot of heavy things that comes your way that you have to grapple with, that you have to struggle with. And so when I was about 8 years old and I was struggling with this thing about skepticism, and it got to the point that I was about 12, this was linked with my testimony on the last recording. God has a way of showing you that He's real in your most humbling points. He comes through when you realize that you have no other option to go to because they're stretched out.
Mercy.
And that's when God comes through. He comes in the strongest is when He comes in just glaringly obvious. And that's what happened to me when I was about 14 years old. My parents were divorced. My home was ripped apart. At that same time, I had 4 other family members that were being divorced. So my entire construction of a family was being ripped apart. What I had known as my own world was gone. And it was to the point that I said, I can't do it anymore. And I said, God, and this is what I said specifically to God. I said, God, the Bible in the Old Testament says that you are the God who can rip apart the seas and open up the skies. And He says, and if you're the same God of the Old Testament, then that means that you should be the same God of the New Testament and the same God that you are today. And I said, if that's the case, then you need to come through for me now, because what I've seen so far is a weak God. And that night He changed my heart. Which is probably one of the most hardest things to do, is to change a human heart. And so that was the point for me when my glasses were changed, I guess you can say. When things were refocused a little bit better.
Right on. Jordan?
The change, I think it's ongoing. I think the biggest, if I was to pinpoint, though, a moment or a certain point in my life where I felt that a light went on to a degree, or there was a change to a degree, I think I had been in a pattern of going to Southern, working at camp during the summer, going to Southern, and working at camp during the summer, back and forth for 4 or 5, for 3-4 years, not 5. I haven't done that many years of college, but
I have.
I'm close. No, I have, just not here. I did 1 year at Andrews, and then. And that's really discouraging when you really think that I want to live my life for the gospel. I want to live my life for Jesus in some way. I don't just want to be a 9 to 5. Clock in, clock out, and I know that I just don't want to do that. If anything, I would lose my own focus, and I think Jesus needs me to do something more directly in line with ministry, for the sake of my own salvation, more than anyone else's probably. But I think the big turning point was in realizing that I was not satisfied with learning, because learning is good, but after a while, and if it's not done in the right way, and if you're not balanced, which I've never been probably super balanced, it really consumes you and kind of becomes all about me.
Yeah.
It's all about me. I want to learn. And then, so finally, this last year I went to a Rise Institute, and not to put in any advertisements, but I will, just because I'm here. And
go for it.
Yeah, I was at a Rise Institute. I'd wanted to go for a long time, many years. A resource institute in soul winning and evangelism. It's with Light Bears out in Oregon now. David Asher Tigers.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool guys.
And I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest breakthrough has not been finding like a proof, or finding like, I can open the Bible and put together this equation and give people this Bible study and point to this, and then I know God is real. No. it's been me. It's taken me like being angry with myself and so broken and so angry, like when they read a passage from the Bible and everyone's going, wow. And I'm like, why don't I respond like that? Or like, what am I, like some carnal, wicked person? Like, why doesn't my heart melt the way that I sense that it should?
Yeah.
Right. And I kind of came to a point of like brokenness where I said, God, if this is the truth, help me to see your truth. And I think more than anything, I fell in love with the character of God. Not proof, not scientific evidence, not even full answers for my questions, but more the reality that God is love.
Wow.
And
what that looks like in different
what
aspects.
yeah, and I think really what I saw is I feel like in Jesus, I felt like I really met Jesus almost for the first time at her eyes, and I feel like I saw the face of God, and the face of God, the most obvious statement to the whole universe of who God is was when he is making the biggest sacrifice ever made in the history of the universe. I mean, essentially, how many times you could say it a billion times, and it's always a great thing. Some people write it off, but like God's greatest moment of glory was when he was the lowliest, dirtiest servant to mankind, hanging on a Roman instrument of torture. You know, like this is my statement. The whole universe is looking at me to say, what are you going to do? There's this problem of sin. What are you going to do? And God says, this is my entire case in point. This is my argument, the cross.
Wow.
You know, and like I think just in seeing
That's
that,
deep, man.
that just
Yeah.
I don't have answers.
Yeah.
But that's a yeah.
That's deep, man. I love it. Tony, you have 30 seconds.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know what? I'm gonna start flashing you guys like 10 seconds. You know, not a lot of time.
Marcus has a very
Alright,
angry look on his face right now. He's just
Furious.
Yeah.
I'm gonna direct all the anger at you.
I mean, like I kind of talked about it last time. I just came to this sense from me where in my head I just accepted God as the logical way to live my life. I said, this is going to get me the best bang for my buck. You know, at the end of the day, I'm responsible for how I live my life. No one else. I can't hold anybody else responsible and be like, oh, it was government, it was my parents, it's me. I chose to live my life my way. And I won't go down the tangent of people that do end up doing that. But for me, it was like I have to choose how I'm going to live my life. And if you look at real, true Christianity, the way that it was meant to be, not the way that we have interpreted it and the traditions we have put on it.
Right.
Through the way Jesus lived his life and the way he put that down. And if you choose to live that way, you come to a point where you say, well, there has to be a God. And even if there isn't, quote, end quote, you know, a la Richard Dawkins, man, I'd prefer the lie, because that lie leads me to a better place, to be a better person. And that centerpiece where I choose to start from, that worldview,
Totally.
is going to turn me into someone who's going to change the world for the better.
Totally.
You know, and that was where skepticism ended for me. And after that point, I'm still going to question. I'm still going to try to prove God, but it's never going to come to the point where I'm like, well, does he really exist? It's like, man, even if he doesn't exist, this is still the best way for me to live my life. This is still the best way for me to go out there and treat the people around me, treat my neighbors, treat animals, treat all that stuff that stems out of that idea that, you know, Christ and Christ alone, you know, and apart from tradition, apart from all that other stuff.
Yeah. Right on. Wow. Right on time. So,
For me,
yes.
for me, it came through other people. That's what proved that God was real to me. Kind of like Ruth, I had challenged him and be like, okay, if the things that you say are true, these things that you're talking about love, you're talking about you are love, you need to prove that to me. And at a point, a crisis for my family, we almost lost my younger brother in a motorcycle accident. One of the most difficult times for our family. God proved that he was real, that his words were true, by the way that people in my parents' church, my friends, my brother's friends, kind of rallied around us and showed us God's love, especially to my brother in a way that wasn't deserved, but it was very powerful. And so God used his servants, his people, to show me that he was very real. And now I know that no matter what someone might be going through, no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how distant you might feel from God, that he is right there, he is very present, he is very real. And if you ask him to, he will prove it.
Right on, man. Well, you know, I think my bout with doubt and skepticism.
Bout with doubt.
My bout with doubt.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. It wasn't as epic as it is for some people. It wasn't as difficult as it is for some people. And but it definitely threw me for a spin. You know, just I wanted to be involved in full-time ministry since I was like 17, and here I am. I'm in college. I'm married to a Christian girl. 25 years old, and for the first time ever, I'm like, well, what if this whole thing is baloney? You know, what if this whole thing is fake? And I can't say that it kept me up at night. It wasn't that dramatic, but it definitely threw me for a spin. You know, I definitely felt the anxiety of that idea just eating me up, and just thinking, you know, like, what if, like, seriously thinking, like, what if this whole thing is just, you know, like, what if, I mean, I was raised this way, I was raised in this culture, and I'm just like, it's so possible that this whole thing is just psychology, you know, it's just psychology, and this whole idea of God and his love and all of this stuff is just psychology, and then I started taking that science class, and I was like, you know, I had to listen and read about, you know, all these like atheists and stuff, and I was just like, mercy, you know, I don't know that I'm equipped to really handle this, you know. So I think that was a time in my life where it started to escalate. I can't remember how long it lasted, but it was definitely a challenge to my faith that I had never really had before. I think I'd always just had that blind faith where it's like, oh yeah, I just kind of know it's true, so I just believe it. You know, I don't challenge it, I don't investigate, I just kind of know it is, and that's it. At that time in my life, that I just kind of know it is, somehow that just got destroyed, and now I really needed to look into it and figure it out for myself. So let's talk, you know, a little bit more about what it was like when things started to turn around. And by the way, I really want to capitalize on what you've been sharing, Jordan, about the fact that, you know, we need to be careful of placing ourselves on a pedestal that, hey, we've got it all figured out now, you know, we've got it all sorted. I think that's a great point that you made there, and I want to capitalize on that. So when we talk about, you know, the turnaround, you know, I think it's important to embrace the reality that it's not over, you know. It really isn't. The fact is, none of us have seen God. And it's always going to be a challenge. It's always going to be a struggle, you know. And it's not until Jesus finally comes that we will confidently be able to say, I no longer have doubt. You know, that's why the Bible says that, you know, faith is going to last to the end, you know, because we're going to need it. And so what we'll do is we'll kind of go this way around so we can end with you and let you have the closing thoughts. So we'll go with Ruth, just share those moments where the turnaround started to take place, and we'll come around the opposite way and give it to Jordan. Go for it.
I would have to say that probably one of the biggest tools that I have to be able to combat, you know, this skepticism is coming to terms with the fact that God is a person. Mm-hmm. He's not a force. He's not this floaty thingy out there somewhere. You know, he's someone that has feelings. He thinks. He has ways of doing things. He has preferences. He has dislikes. He has, you know, he hates things and he loves things. And the thing is that when I began to see and understand, and God began to show to me that he was a being, what do you do with a person? You know, you sit down, you talk with the person, you figure out what he likes, what he doesn't like, you figure out what rubs him the wrong way. I mean, you know, there's times that I really have sat down and say, you know, what makes God smile? Mm-hmm. Like, what really makes him smile? Does he laugh? does God find jokes funny? It's these type of things that really began to help me see that there are different connecting points that I can have with God. That there's something else in my personality, me as a human being, that can be connected to Him on a personal level. The challenge is because of the fact we can't see Him, therefore we don't think that He's, therefore we think He's not real. And the challenge then that God has us to the table is, just because you can't see me does not mean that it takes away my existence. Yeah. And so that's really what really began to help me. And it's like what Jordan pointed out. I mean, this is a lifelong process. There's going to be things that you're going to find out about yourself that you didn't even know existed in you, like you being able to drop the F-bomb in extreme issues. It's things happen in life that show something else in you that you realize, man, this really needs the help of God, and that's what was able to help me really be able to get the hooks that I needed.
Awesome. I'm going to go through mine quickly because I want to get around to Jordan's closing thoughts. I know he has to go. But for me, quite honestly, like I said, I'm not going to elaborate on this much, but I took the challenge, and I sat down and I read and I studied and I looked at atheists and their worldview and their way of looking at things and their answers and their explanations. And long story short, I just came to the end of the journey more convinced than ever that God was real. And it's funny because I have people like Richard Dawkins to thank for that. Like he actually helped strengthen my faith. And these atheists, when I looked at their worldview, and it sounds so intelligent at the forefront, but the more you dig and the deeper you go and the further down you move the dirt out of the way, the dumber and dumber and dumber it gets. And it got to the point where I was
if you're
like,
right, Richard Dawkins, please say that.
Yes, I will.
You get dumber the more I read you. Just so you know.
Well, I'm not insulting him as a person. He's a really intelligent guy. I just think that the worldview just begins to degenerate as it goes along. And I'm not going to go into it anymore. But go ahead, Steve.
For me, it was crisis. Crisis forced God to kind of be real or not. That's
right.
it. Yeah. And because I saw my God be real in my crisis, it allowed me to, when things are going good, say He's just as real, He's just as present, He's just as relevant.
Wow. Powerful, man. Tony?
I was watching the other day this guy called the Jesus painter. His name's Mike Lewis. And he was painting, kind of like what Ruth said, a picture of Jesus Christ. And when he got to the point, of course, he gets there. The journey, he's a performer, so he gets there. He paints, different scenes of people watching someone kind of kneel to the cross. It ends up being the face of Jesus. But the last thing he did was the eyes. And I had my boss take a picture of it and send it to me because those eyes, it just looked right through you. And I look at the way that Christianity has lasted throughout the years and the effect that it has had, and it reminds me, like Ruth said, that there was a person there who had those eyes. And I really believe it. And if you can prove that Jesus exists in history. And the effect that he had, you can't deny that. You can't. It's his fact. It's historical fact. As much as they want to throw it away. And he had something about him that changed people to the point that they went out and changed the world, really. And it wasn't until, it took hundreds of years before that really started to really change and become something else. But it was those eyes, that person, like Ruth was saying, Jesus Christ. And later on we'll talk about experiencing Jesus, but it was an experience I had with him, with his presence, that proved to me, what, man, that this is what it turns around. This is what it always turns around, because at some point there was a person with these eyes that could just see right through you, that still loved you but knew exactly who you were. And that to me was what brought an end to it.
Wow. Well, we've come to the end of our pod, and I'm going to turn it over to Jordan now. He's going to have our closing thoughts and this whole issue of skepticism and the challenge. And I hope it's been a blessing to those who have heard, anyone who's been struggling with skepticism. We haven't attempted to really, answer the question or to be, like apologetics, like we've said at the beginning. We've just attempted to share our stories, and I hope it's been a blessing to some. But go ahead, Jordan. I'm looking forward to your closing thoughts.
I'm reminded of in 2 Timothy, Paul is writing to Timothy, and he's warning specifically about the conditions of the world, the way things are going to be at the very end, before the time of Jesus coming. And that's the part where we sometimes quote having a form of godliness but denying the power of godliness. But it culminates. It's the closing statement. I don't have to lose something now, do I?
No, you still lose it.
Okay.
Are you out of stuff?
No, I put my phone in my pocket.
Oh, okay. Because you were about to go through the chair of shame during your closing thoughts, dude.
End it.
It
We
finishes.
almost did that last time.
It finishes. Paul's like long. Paul makes a long list of things, and he finishes with saying, I think, and those who are always pursuing knowledge, but never arriving at understanding of the truth. And I think that we value asking questions so much, and I think that that's good and that's healthy. And you should ask questions because you should understand why you believe what you believe, or if you do believe what you believe.
Yeah.
But I think that we forget that faith is important. And as big as understanding is, faith is big. And that seems to be what Jesus is talking about in all the Gospels. He's come to build faith. You know, like he even says to the disciples, he says, well, you believe because of the works that I've done. You believe because of the things that you've seen, but blessed are the people who haven't seen and believe. You know,
Man, and that's us.
Yeah, that's us. That's all of us right here. Yeah.
well, and here's the thing. You could put together the arguments of, you know what, the tomb was empty. They can't argue that. Even Jesus' opponents in the book of Acts, you know, or in at the end of the Gospels, even Jesus' enemies had to go and make a story about the body being stolen because they couldn't find the body. All they would have had to do is find the body and say, here's the body, look, he's dead. They never did that. So you could make the arguments about the empty tomb. You can make the arguments about famous historians who talk about the fact that Jesus was a real person who lived at the time the Bible says he did, that mentions other important people, Peter, Paul, you know. You could talk about those kind of things. You could talk about what C.S. Lewis says, where C.S. Lewis, where he says, if I find in my soul and myself a desire for which no earthly experience can satisfy, my most logical conclusion is that I was made for another world. You know, we have desires that go beyond that go beyond the limits that we have.
Yeah.
I can only sometimes I can dream beyond Earth's terms. Where did that come from? Was I made for something more? You could argue all those things, but I think the really big important thing that we can't lose sight of, and that we're always in danger to losing sight of, is the power that the gospel has on people's lives.
Yeah.
You look at Paul, who, if you want to talk about somebody who was knowledgeable, he studied under the one of the most famous Jewish scholars. He had all that, you know, he had the PhD in the 7 master's degrees and all that kind of stuff. But when he writes his letters to the churches, he introduces himself as a Joe Blow.
Yeah.
He says, "Oh, hi, I'm Paul. Used to be Saul, was persecuting Christians, did all this kind of stuff. I was a bad, wicked guy. God has gotten control of my life." And everywhere he goes, you know, he goes to Agrippa, he goes to Felix, or these different kings or whatever, and he starts telling the whole story again, the road to Damascus story. That's the story that he's telling. He's talking about the power of God to change life. I told my brother a few weeks ago, we were talking on the phone, and sometimes he struggles with faith, and he's very logical, very I think it's left-brained, maths and sciences, really strong in that kind of stuff. And sometimes he really struggles with the idea of God because you can't prove God, you can't put him in a test tube, you can't, you know he's beyond that. And I just kind of said to my brother, the thing is, at the end of the day, I told him, I said, I have peace that you don't have. You know, and it's true.
Yeah.
And I think we run a risk of citing all these famous authors and all these famous people, and the truth is, I think when we really, really, really are struggling with God, we're not really in the Bible. Because I know my life. I know that I've been mostly wicked. I am mostly wicked through and through, you know. I'm so human and so in need of Jesus. But I know that when I am praying and saying, God, I don't know what to think, how to think, but I wanna find your truth in your word. I know that he leads me to the amount of faith he wants me to have. Any other religion in the world, any other faith in the world, is based somehow on what you can do, what your worth is that you can create for yourself, or is based on pride, arrogance, or some sort of like attainment. You know, the ancient Greeks, their gods are like these like crazy, like they're so full of themselves, these heroes, you know what I mean? Something like Islam, it's very much based on do these things, and you're good. Religions all across the world are like that, works-based. Christianity is the only one in the whole, I think, is really the only one that says you are given what you don't deserve so that you can have what you don't deserve through someone who earned it for you. Yeah. And all these other things, all these philosophies, you follow them through to the end. You know, Richard Dawkins, any of these guys, you follow them through to the end. They will. The ultimate theory is that progress of the human race comes through death, through destruction of the weak. And Christianity is the only thing totally contrary to that says it's actually by weakness. It's actually by weakness that life is created. It's Jesus came as a carpenter to die in service to people, and we all know that that's right. Yeah. We all put people who are great servants of humanity on a pedestal, and I think that deep down inside we know that's the truth.
Wow, man. Well, we've come to the end of our time.
Did I go over?
And,
I did. Sorry.
It's all good, man. It's all good. Thanks for being with us, man. We really had a good time having you here.
Thanks for letting me come.
And
cool.
you know, we'll be doing a lot of pods in the future, and we'd love to have you back sometime in the future, man. But
Sweet.
Yeah, thank you for your authenticity and for sharing your story, dude. It was really cool. And Tony, could you lead us out in prayer?
Definitely. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you so much for a wonderful time we've had together talking about you, talking about the minds that you've given us. In Isaiah 1:18, you said, "Come now, let us reason together." And Lord, that's what we're doing. We're using the minds that you've given us. Lord, these minds have all led us to you because you are the thing that is most important on this earth. And so we ask that in everything that we do, we would always give you glory and honor and praise, and that you would continue to reveal yourself to us. As we walk with you, and eventually one day we'll go home and know you face to face. We ask this in your name.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, let me use one more big word and lose my last item and go to the chair of shame. I think this podcast,
Use your pen.
we're on the periphery of something great.
Chair of shame. Well, we gotta turn the chair around and face the wall, dude.
Mercy.
We gotta, yeah.
You know what we need to do is come up with a great exit.
Steve, come up with a sound effect for a great exit.
Go, Steve.
Exit.
That was horrendous, dude.
No, that was amazing.
You think it was amazing?
I thought it's perfect.
I don't know.
I stopped recording before I did it. Yeah,
Stop recording.
All right,
You
guys.
said
Hey,
not
man, here's
to.
your phone.
Specifically said
Thanks, guys.
not
It was
to.
fun.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for coming, bro. It was awesome, and we will,
gotta
like
go.
I said,
All right, man.
we'll be recording more. So
I will see you at the apartment later.
You know.
I gotta go too.
Nice meeting you, folks.
Yeah, same here, man.
Ruth, Marcos.
Are you gonna get it to me tomorrow?
I'll get it to you tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, get it to me
It's gonna take a
tomorrow.
while.
Enjoy
save
the
this
rest of
one.
that.
I'm literally still recording everything, so just be super careful.
Are you
Ruth.
recording everything still?
Oh yeah. No, Ruth has a.
So why'd Steve stop recording? All right, man.
I have a whoop.
Hey, man.
She is.
Sure thing, dude. God bless.
She thinks the mic's off.
See you, Tom. Cheers, Steve.
Right.
Take care, bro.
All right.